Today, we're diving into Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, a story about one crazy guy and another guy who's trying very hard to make sense of the crazy guy. But it is not just a ghost story, it's also about the clash between two worldviews, the Enlightenment and Romanticism, and what happens when reason itself begins to fall apart. The battle between two worlds. The Enlightenment believed in the power of reason, science, and order. Think Benjamin Franklin, the man who literally charted his moral progress in tables and diagrams. To Enlightenment thinkers, truth could be measured, recorded, and improved through logic. Romanticism came as a reaction against that cold rationality. Thinkers like Ralph Waldo Emerson urged people to throw away their books, walk into the woods, and trust their intuition. For the Romantics, truth wasn't in data or logic. It lived in the imagination, in emotion, and in the mysteries of nature. The Enlightenment says, think. Romanticism says, feel. It's the mind versus the heart, science versus art, sanity versus imagination. British Romanticism, of course, gave us the poets, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Byron, emotional rebels who saw the divine in nature. But American Romanticism took those ideas and turned them darker, stranger, and more psychological. American Romanticism had two main branches, Transcendentalists and Dark Romantics. The Transcendentalists included Emerson and Thoreau. They were the sunny optimists who believed that nature heals and that every soul contains a spark of divinity. On the other side, the Dark Romantics, like Poe, Hawthorne, and Melville, who looked into nature and saw something menacing. They were fascinated by guilt, sin, madness, and decay. And that tension between reason and imagination defines not just Poe's writing, but Usher itself. Poe's two worlds. Poe stood at the border between reason and imagination. His stories can be divided into two categories, tales of ratiocination and tales of the grotesque and arabesque. He wrote Tales of Ratiocination, the first detective stories where logic restores order, where the detective explains everything and the irrational becomes rational. Poe actually invented the modern detective story decades before Sherlock Holmes. But he also wrote Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, his Gothic tales, where the opposite happens, reason collapses, and the mind becomes a haunted house. The Fall of the House of Usher belongs to the second kind, a story where Enlightenment reason walks straight into romantic madness. Reason enters the house. The narrator is our representative of the Enlightenment mind. He is rational, educated, and scientific. He calls himself a man of observation and analysis, confident that every mystery can be solved through reason. When he receives a letter from his childhood friend, Roderick Usher, who claims to be gravely ill, he treats the visit almost like an experiment, as though he's studying a case of melancholy. But as he nears the house, reason begins to falter. He feels, in his own words, a sense of insufferable gloom pervaded my spirit. The air seems heavy, the lake reflects the house like a black mirror, and the entire landscape feels infected by decay. Inside, the house is suffocating. The corridors are dim, the air stagnant, the furniture ancient. When he finally meets Roderick, he barely recognizes him. His skin is pale, his hair floats like cobwebs, and his eyes gleam with unnatural intensity. Roderick represents the romantic artist, hypersensitive, emotional, and completely consumed by imagination. He tells the narrator that he suffers from a morbid acuteness of the senses, that bright light, certain sounds, even textures torment him. Roderick's twin sister, Lady Madeline, represents romantic nature and the body, mysterious, instinctive, and beyond rational control. She suffers from a strange illness that no doctor can explain, moving like a ghost between life and death. Together, the twins embody the romantic ideal: feeling and flesh, the irrational unity of mind and body. When Lady Madeline dies, Roderick insists on keeping her body sealed in the family vault beneath the house. The narrator, ever the Enlightenment thinker, goes along with it, explaining that he had no desire to oppose what he regarded as, at best, but a harmless, and not by any means an unnatural precaution. He's rationalizing something deeply irrational. Instead of recognizing the Gothic strangeness of entombing a corpse in the basement, he reframes it as a precaution, as if he's describing a medical procedure or a safety measure. This is the Enlightenment mind under pressure, translating terror into logic, reason into denial. He believes he's maintaining control, but his calm detachment only shows how fragile that control really is. After Lady Madeline's burial, both men begin to unravel. Roderick becomes restless, paranoid, and increasingly convinced that the house itself is alive, that the stones and walls are sentient and connected to his family's fate. The narrator, still clinging to reason, dismisses it all as imagination. One stormy night, the final break occurs. Roderick bursts into the narrator's room, trembling and wild-eyed. To calm him, the narrator reads aloud from a medieval tale, The Mad Trist, a story about a knight slaying a dragon in a thunderstorm. But as he reads, the same sounds from the story begin to echo through the real house. At first, the narrator tries to reason it away. He insists that the strange flashes outside the window are merely electrical phenomena not uncommon. Even as the house seems to breathe and the storm rages around them, he explains it as science, but then fiction and reality merge. Roderick confesses that he's been hearing those same noises for days, the sounds of his sister's coffin opening. He then cries out to the narrator, "Madman! I tell you that she now stands without the door." Lady Madeline appears, bloodied, trembling, her white clothes stained with red. She falls upon her brother, and both collapse, dead. The narrator flees into the storm as lightning flashes across the mansion. Behind him, the house of Usher splits in two and sinks into the lake, swallowed by its own reflection. It's not just a house collapsing, it's the mind itself disintegrating, and with it, the Enlightenment belief. In Poe's detective tales, logic restores order, chaos arrow clarity. But here it's reversed, clarity to chaos. The rational narrator becomes the unreasoning one. By the end, when Roderick calls him a madman, we can't tell who's sane anymore. The house falls, and with it, the illusion that reason can save us. This collapse isn't just Gothic drama, it's Poe's Counter-Enlightenment statement. The Enlightenment promised that reason could illuminate every mystery, that science would banish fear and superstition forever. But Poe reveals the opposite. In Usher, the more the narrator explains, the less he understands. Rationality doesn't dispel terror, it intensifies it, exposing how fragile logic really is. The House of Usher, with its elegant symmetry and hidden crack down the centre, becomes a metaphor for the Enlightenment project itself. Grand, ordered and confident on the surface, but secretly splitting apart from within. In that sense, the fall of the House of Usher doesn't merely oppose the Enlightenment, it deconstructs it. The narrator embodies Enlightenment reason, detached, descriptive, analytical, while Roderick and Lady Madeline embody Romanticism, the imagination and the body, the emotional and the natural. And their collision destroys them all. The narrator survives, but his rational world does not. Poe's paradox. At first glance, the fall of the House of Usher seems purely romantic, Gothic, emotional, irrational, and full of dread. Nature here isn't healing, it's hostile, almost alive in its decay. But Poe writes madness with absolute control. Every word, every rhythm, every image is deliberate and meticulously arranged. Even the poem The Haunted Palace sits perfectly at the story's center, mirroring the human mind falling into ruin. So while Poe's story depicts madness, Poe writes with Enlightenment precision. That's his paradox. He uses perfect order to portray the collapse of order itself. And maybe the greatest irony of all is that Poe, the dark romantic, was secretly the most enlightened of them all.